Hey, it's Alice Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and this is attempt number 4 to film this video. Attempt number 1 was a little wishy-washy. I wasn't too happy with the final product, and I'll explain that more as we get through it. Attempt number 2, I did not have any sound on, and so, well, that was fun. Attempt number 3 was about 2.5 minutes ago, where I started this whole video saying this is attempt number 3, hopefully it will not be attempt number 4 later, and then forgot to turn my ringer off, and so got a nice loud phone call in the middle, because that happened. So this is attempt number 4. In any case, before we get into The Thing the board game by John Carpenter, a video that I'm doing because of all of you who commented on Monday's roundup video saying you want a video for The Thing. I asked about 3 videos, The Thing, Dungeon Universalis, and Set a Watch, and by far The Thing was the most requested, so we're starting with that one. The other 2 we'll still see and go from there. But before we get into The Thing, let's talk about the fact that the first link down below, if you check out the description down below, the very first link will be a link to the Quackalope podcast featuring, well, it's actually the Quackalope podcast, but more specifically, it's the Weekly Quack featuring BoardGameCo. It is a podcast that I do together with Quackalope, with Jesse and Jan from Quackalope, in which we talk about games that we're getting rid of, games that we're keeping, why or why not. We try to argue with each other, convince each other, guess what's going on. We also talk about what's on our radar, which is usually going to be Kickstarter games, and the reason I mentioned this today is because we talked about The Thing in this week's episode. So check that out by all means. That episode will actually be going up tomorrow probably, so depending on when you're watching this video, you may have to wait for that one, but don't worry, there's a healthy backlog of fun episodes to listen to. I highly recommend checking it out. I am a little biased, but that is what it is. In any case, The Thing. Let's go into The Thing. So The Thing, the board game, is basically the board game inspired by the board game, inspired by the other board game, inspired by the movie, inspired by the book. The book is actually inspired another movie. There's a lot of stuff here. There's a book, 2 movies, and like 3 board games, maybe 4. I'm not even sure. There might even be more. I don't really know. But in any case, today we are talking about The Thing, the official licensed board game from Pendragon Studios and Universal, bringing you The Thing. And so let's go into what this game is talking about, well, what this game is about, what the gameplay is like, what the pledge level is, and whether or not you should back it, which as always is the fun part. So, The Thing. In The Thing, and let's talk about the movie first, because I think that's relevant, and timestamps down below in case you want to skip to anything, but the movie first is a good indicator of how this game will play out, because the movie, or the basic story of The Thing, involves an alien crash landing in an Arctic base, kind of taking over a dog, which then proceeds to enter the base, and then proceeds to morph into different humans, or take them over, and panic and terror ensues as characters try to figure out what is going on, who's an alien, who's not, how do we figure it out, and from there you can kind of figure out what the board game is about, because the board game is the same thing. This is a hidden role game, a game in the genre of Battlestar Galactica, of One Eye Ultimate Werewolf, of Resistance. It has that basic aspect of characters who are trying to keep things hidden, while other characters have objectives and are trying to figure it out. More similar to Battlestar Galactica in the sense that there is a giant infrastructure of things you're doing along the way. Resistance and One Eye are kind of more condensed into the actual discovery, versus Battlestar Galactica or Dark Moon after it are good examples of games that kept that hidden element and tried to extrapolate a full game around it. And Who Goes There, or The Thing Outpost 31, any of the iterations of this game, they all have that going for it. And in The Thing, the first thing you're going to do every round, phase 1, you're going to roll the weather dice, which will determine different things, such as, how well the fuel will be consumed from the actual base. In phase 2, you're going to have, for instance, the base will now consume fuel based on the current weather, and you'll have to, and you'll be able to restock fuel. It's one of the actions you'll be able to take. In phase 3, we have the alien actions phase, which is optional. This only happens if there is an exposed alien. What that means is one or multiple characters, whatever it'll be, will be aliens to a degree, and if you choose to play as an exposed alien, what you're going to do is you can choose. You have a choice as an alien. You can either play the hidden role, subterfuge, rely on characters not trusting you, rely on people not trusting anyone, try to basically infiltrate the base through being inefficient and getting everyone on their toes, and everyone's antsy, and everyone is acting in a way that they don't really know what they want to do. Or you can play as an exposed alien, and you can sit there and go for a more of a powerful approach, one in which other players will have to scramble around you to try to achieve what they need, but you also lose that hidden element. And so to a certain extent, you might go with a hybrid of, at a certain point, you'll play as an exposed alien. But that's phase 3, where basically that alien will split his strength between different locations of the outpost. In phase 4, you have draw, move, and play, where each player will give their action card to the leader. The leader will then redistribute those action cards accordingly to let players do different things. So you want to make sure the leader is actually on your side, and you also want to make sure that the leader can kind of control how things play out, can kind of control if they think you're an alien, they have a certain degree of control over how powerful or not powerful you will be. Then you have a contagion check, you get to execute your actions, and the contagion check is the idea that if you have 2 players in one room, that is when you can possibly infect another player, and the answer there is simple, you say, just don't have 2 players in one room, problem solved, which you would think. The problem is that actions often are more powerful if you have a group of players together, and so you have to kind of play that line. Do you want to have a more powerful, beneficial action to actually keep yourselves winning the game and to escape from this base? Or do you want to just play it safe, but who knows? I mean, there's options in front of you, and you have to make decisions. In Phase 5, we have the Leisure Room and the Accusations. Characters can exchange weapons or items, and then they can indicate to different players to increase the level of suspicion against that player. Phase 6, you get to test aliens using blood tests and fire tests, which is very thematic to the movie. If you've watched the movie, they have this element of they used fire and blood to try to figure out what the aliens were, and so they have that going on in this game as well. And finally, Phase 7, we have food consumption, and finally, Phase 8, the dogs move and the leaders change. And those dogs are possible carriers of the aliens, so you want to be very careful about that. That is basically what the game is like. It basically has you trying to survive this whole thing. You might have to destroy rooms on your base to try to figure things out. You're trying to ultimately escape, but you need to figure out who the alien is because you don't want to escape with the alien. It is ultimately a hidden role game with an infrastructure around it. And before we go into the pledge level and should you back it, I'll comment here for if you're new to the genre, if you are intrigued by this game, but you haven't played a hidden role game, I will comment that my own personal opinion is don't start with this one. Do not start with this, do not start with Battlestar Galactica, start with something that's more condensed like One Night Ultimate Werewolf or Resistance, or maybe even Secret Hitler. Those games, because of the fact that they give you that hidden role in a more condensed, smaller experience, One Night Ultimate Werewolf comes in at 8 minutes per game, which is amazing. The benefit of that is players who are new to the genre don't have to worry about not being able to keep a poker face for 2 hours or more. They don't have to worry about that. Because in this game, imagine that you are in that room together and you get the contagion check and the player passes you the thing and you look at it and you're like, I'm not an alien. I'm definitely not an alien. So if you're an experienced liar, if you're experienced at these games, if you know what to do, you can keep a poker face no matter what, and that's great. But if you can't keep your tells in check, when those tells could be literally just your face or it could be making obvious actions inefficiently and just not realizing that taking a certain action in a certain way will clearly call you out as being the traitor or the alien or whatnot. If you're not experienced with that, you can be stuck in a depressing game where everyone knows you're an alien and it's just annoying and frustrating. So if you're new to the genre, if you're introducing friends to the genre who are new to the genre, I highly recommend more condensed games like Resistance and One Night Ultimate Werewolf. It will give you that opportunity to pick up on those tells with a much smaller cost to being stuck in a long game where everyone knows who you are. And that's just, I guess, basic advice on the genre and not so much about the thing. So, the thing. Let's cover the pledge level. The pledge level is really simple. They have 2 pledge levels, which is, they have a retailer pledge, but they have the $1, $2 supporter pledge level, where you get access to the pledge manager, and the prices seem to be the same. They have no update, the prices will be different. And then $93 or 79 euros, we have the core pledge, and that's going to be plus an additional 15 euro or 18 or so dollars for shipping to the US. Shipping will vary by place, by country, obviously, and that's going to get you the core pledge. So at 93 plus 18ish or so, you're basically talking about $110 to $115 to get this game, which is, as you might imagine, a lot of money. So what do you get with that? What do you get? So you basically get 3 things. You get the core box, the miniature set, and all unlocked stretch goals. And let's go through each of those one at a time. For the core box, you get the board game, and the map, and the tokens, and the cards, and all this stuff that you are usually going to see in a board game. And if you had to guess how much this is going to cost you, if you go to Cool Stuff Inc., Miniature Market, BoardGameCo, if you go to any of these online stores, and you want to buy this board game, guess how much something like this would cost? Because the answer is probably in the range of $35 to $45, possibly even cheaper on sale. Now, there might be a little higher cost because of licensing. Licensing is a factor, but it's not going to be $93, $110 once you count shipping. So that's a pretty big gap we have to close. But the good news is we can close that gap a little bit with the miniatures. The miniature set over here is included in that. And so that miniature set, how much do you think that would cost? Because if past miniature sets that showed their way to retail are any indicator, maybe it'll start off at $30, might go down to $20. It does depend on the quality of the miniatures, but at the end of the day, the gap, let's say it's $30. Let's say the whole thing together is $70. That seems reasonable. And in fact, using that $70, let's look at the Why Back Now section, because they talk about that briefly, if I can find it. They don't have it there. They have it. Why Kickstarter? Why pledge on Kickstarter? Help us realize the game, be a part of the community, encourage backers with many call to actions. You can vote and stuff, which is great. No, I'm not going to dismiss that. It's a lot of fun to be on Kickstarter. Also not a huge value to me and not a reason why I would pay more for a game, but to each their own. Obtain the core game plus the miniature set with a nice discount, 79 euros as opposed to 95 euros. So 79 euros on a 95 euro MSRP, and I'm assuming that's MSRP. It sounds okay. It actually doesn't really sound that good to begin with, but it gets worse when you factor in the fact that once you're paying shipping, it's 94 euros versus 95 euro MSRP, which is not a good deal by any means. Make the game better for everyone unlocking the stretch goals. Your copy will contain them without any additional cost. After the campaign, many of the stretch goals will only be available as a separate product at an additional cost. Many stretch goals will be exclusive and not available after not available after the campaign ends. And so that's what you have here. You basically have two categories of stretch goals, or really three. The stretch goals are going to be the determining factor, because if you're following so far, we basically have roughly in the range of $70, roughly, and I think it'll be even cheaper when it's on sale, but roughly in the range of $70 retail compared to $110 asking price in the Kickstarter. They're charging $40 more, plus of course giving your money up a year in advance, plus of course risking that the game will actually be good. For what? And those things are going to be the stretch goals. The stretch goals are going to be the difference. Let's go through those stretch goals and try to figure out what we have here. To begin with, we have the game funded. Great. We have a new character. This is one of 4 new characters. We'll go through each one. There is a 5th new character already in the, to be unlocked. So at least 5 characters, let's say. We have the official logo. We have the 1-2-3 player mode. Basically, this is a 4 to 8 player game, if I'm not mistaken. And the 1-2-3 player mode is a stretch goal. I can't imagine you get the same experience as a 1-player game. Maybe 3, 2. I don't really know how it would play out. But understand that a game like this is likely to get less rewarding with fewer players, even with a module in there. We have plastic fuel tanks, and notice the fact that these so far don't say Kickstarter exclusive. These all fall into the category so far of things I don't know about this module over here, but the plastic fuel tanks, for instance, are likely to either be ending up in the miniature pledge or as a separate optional buy on its own. Then next up we have another new character, 2 of 5. We have Spot UV on the cover. We have plastic gems, which again is likely to be either an optional buy of some sort after the fact or together with the miniatures. We have 4 plastic dogs, which again could be part of the miniature set, could be available separately. We have card weight. We have plastic food, these cute little spam tokens which will replace the food. A nice little upgrade. We have another new character, that's 3 of 5. We have unlocked weapon artwork. So this I imagine is going to make its way into the core game as well. I'd be surprised if they printed separate cards for core versus deluxe, but who knows. We have the plastic insert, and this one is a big unknown because inserts range from basically useless to $30, $40 value on their own if you're getting something that's really, really deluxe, like a broken token, game trays, or all that stuff. This one, they didn't announce any brand name, and so frankly, unless I have any reason to believe otherwise, I would assume the worst. I would assume it's a good insert, but nothing amazing. They did release images of other inserts they have and whatnot, so who knows, but I'm not overly enthusiastic about the value here. The official logo on another bag, another new character, more item artwork, a new game variant with 8 special cards for alternate setup, and new character. These are all unlocked. Those are the 5 new characters. And that's what you're getting for $40, which is not bad, also not amazing. Basically, what you have here is the problem on the table, and let's divide this up, because there's 2 should you back it's effectively. One is yourself, what's your own value system, what do you value personally? And then 2 is what's the secondary market going to determine if this game isn't for you. If you buy this game and you don't like this game, can you get your money back? And the first one is a personal choice, but I'll go into my own thought process. My own thought process here, in terms of what I'm looking at and whether I'm backing it, and I'm not, by the way, I will not be backing this game. I am interested, incredibly interested. But my own thought process is $110 versus a game that's likely to be $35, maybe $40 after the fact. Once it hits retail, wait till a sale day or anything like that, $35, $40 with free shipping on whatever order I have. That's a big gap. That's a big gap to be bridging for an experience that is ultimately the same. Now, don't get me wrong, I am all for deluxe experiences. If you follow this channel, you know that I back pretty expensive games, but this one's a hard one. That gap for the level of game here, combined with the fact that I know myself and I know my group, and this is likely to not hit the table as often as I would like. Hopefully more than Battlestar Galactica, the playtime comes in at 15 minutes per player, which is semi-reasonable, but with COVID and everything else going on, it's rare that I have 5 players. 4 is already an accomplishment. It's rare that we get to 5 because we have a very condensed group at this point to try to keep things localized. And so I just don't think this game will hit the table enough to justify deluxifying that experience to that end. And while I like some of the miniatures, like these monster miniatures, which by the way, kudos to the campaign, kudos to Pendragon, this video is insanely well done. Watch the video because every ounce of I don't know, water that I'm throwing on this will likely be undone by watching this video. It's a really solid video, made me want to not only back the game, but to rewatch the movie. And those miniature sculpts that are monsters, they're straight from the video, which I love. It's very thematic. I would love to play with those. The regular characters, with one or two exceptions, I just don't care about. They all look okay. And yes, they're accurate to the movie to a degree, but still I'm just not pulled in by them enough. So, and all those extras, the food tokens, the barrels, all that stuff, while it's nice, while I do like it, I don't know if it's a $70 game, if it's an extra $70 to deluxify that experience for me. But what will the secondary market say? What will the secondary market determine? If you get this game because it does look cool, what will the secondary market do? And to that, we're going to look at Who Goes There. Who Goes There, which is the most similar thing we can compare it to in terms of a Kickstarter that had, same basic theme, same basic premise, but a lot of differences in the actual gameplay. Who Goes There is a game that their base pledge came in at $59, which is significantly cheaper than the $93 we're seeing here. They did have deluxified pledges with more options, more characters, and the Kickstarter basically had miniatures instead of standees. They had some other extras as well. And if you look at the price history on BoardGameGeek, that price history shows that this game consistently sold for easily $75, $85, getting back players' initial pledge plus their shipping, which is good. That's a good sign. This one is different though, because this one is starting off at $93, and a big part of that cost is the license. This is no fault of Pendragon Studios. I'm not giving them a hard time at all. Licenses cost money, and that money has to be factored into the price. So the fact that there's an official license here changes what the game has to cost, but it doesn't necessarily, to you or me, change our own enjoyment of the game. But where it does come into play is it might change somebody else's desire to get that game. As much as Who Goes There had incredibly, I'm trying to see if I can find this here, Who Goes There had incredibly appealing miniatures with I can't find them here at all, they're over here somewhere, but Who Goes There, if you check up pictures of their minis, it had a very cutesy theme, very, very well done, excellent job pulling into the world. But this is the thing. This is the actual thing, the board game from Universal with monsters that match the art. This is clearly a reprint or a board game version of the movie, which does change the desire of people to get it down the road. Because at the end of the day, what we have here is we currently have crossed 3,000 backers. It's likely to end up somewhere in the range of Who Goes There. If you look at Who Goes There ended up with 6,500 backers. But if you actually look at KickTrack, most of those backers came in the last 2 weeks of the campaign. Not even 2 weeks, the last week of the campaign. So the thing could easily hit that number or surpass it, or might end up a little shy. Maybe it only hits 5,000. But the appeal and the desire for this game is definitely there from the general audience, despite the higher price tag. And that probably means that to a certain degree, that appeal will hold over to the secondary market as well. If you try this game, if you see it's not for you, again, usual advice follows. We don't know if this is a good game or not. We have no clue if this game is well rated. It looks fun, it looks interesting, but there's lots of other games that look fun and interesting and end up being just okay when they actually land. So my own recommendation is ask yourself if you actually care enough about the extras to not just get this at retail. That's question one. If you do, and you just want to know if it's a game for you, then I recommend going ahead and getting it, but try to get to the table as soon as possible to sell it if you want to, because there will be people who want this game. I don't think it's going to be easy to get your money back. To be clear, I think this game is pretty expensive, unfortunately. But at the same time, I think there will always be people who are enamored with John Carpenter's The Thing. It was an iconic movie. A genuinely iconic movie, and for good reason. And so there will always be people who want to track down your deluxe copy with all your extras. And speaking of which, one of the benefits of having to refilm this video is we did get because I did this yesterday basically before we actually had this update, but they do have an update. For another €35 you can get their Norwegian Outpost expansion, which doesn't really give you a lot of information. They have a few new things, some new boards, new characters, no real artwork here, so I'm not sure how developed this is or isn't, but I'm sure if you want this game, then the same logic applies. Go ahead and check it out. I don't know how Kickstarter exclusive this will be. They haven't said anything in terms of whether it'll be exclusive or not, so they haven't, I would assume not. So the Kickstarter expansion over here, even if you're interested in it, I do recommend to an extent just keeping your eye on how things develop there and seeing whether that's something you could just get at retail instead if there's no reason to get it now. That's basically it. A very appealing game, gorgeous artwork, miniatures that really drive home whatever, a game that I want to play, but speaking for myself, I'm holding off on it, even though I believe it will hold its value to a degree. I just don't know if it'll hit the table soon enough for me to realize that and find out whether the game is good. That's basically it. That's everything. I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, have a good one.